Nintendo is riding high right now. The Switch is flying off the shelves, their 2017 games received praise across the board, and it's starting to look like 2018 will continue to build on a great Switch launch year. One notable absence from the Switch so far though is the Virtual Console. We all love playing games from Nintendo's back catalogue, and the idea of having 30 plus years of Nintendo history to play, wherever you go, has us all anxiously awaiting an announcement. This delay in giving fans a way to enjoy classic Nintendo games on their Switch is surprising. Nintendo have a long history of utilising their heritage through re-releases and knowing nods to games gone by. No one knows better the power of nostalgia than Nintendo. Look at Super Mario Odyssey. Who couldn't smile at those stunning 8-bit sequences? Or spoilers incoming, the magical Super Mario 64 costume and Mushroom Kingdom awaiting you after the credits. Then there's Breath of the Wild, a new Zelda game which harks back to the freeform design principles of the original back on the NES. At GDC in 2017, the developers even revealed that they mapped out and tested ideas for the game using an 8-bit inspired prototype. It's not just us fans who are enamoured with Nintendo's past. In 2016, Nintendo jumped on board with the trend for making plug-and-play mini versions of their classic consoles, including a selection of each console's most popular games. The resulting NES and Super Nintendo mini consoles offer nostalgia to satisfy long-time fans, while giving new fans the opportunity to explore brand new worlds. Cynics out there may scoff when companies play up to fans' nostalgia, and sure, this new line of business is easy money for Nintendo, but beyond simply boosting their bottom line, these consoles do something more important. They highlight something that Nintendo's competitors can't match, the incredible game-making heritage that is Nintendo. If only they'd make enough of these consoles to satisfy demand. Nintendo playing to our nostalgia is nothing new. As far back as the Super Nintendo era, they were already at it, re-releasing their past titles for a new generation. Super Mario All-Stars, the HD definitive edition of its time, shows that even then Nintendo had realised the value of their back catalogue. Too early to be a nostalgic callback perhaps, but Nintendo were already savvy to the power of their emerging history. It was in the GameCube and Game Boy Advance era though, that Nintendo really hit their stride in exploiting this nostalgic appeal. No game embodies this more than Super Smash Bros. Melee. Like the first entry on the Nintendo 64, Melee pulled together a wealth of Nintendo franchises to devastating effect, but also went one step further, drawing not just from current franchises and games, but also from the wealth of Nintendo history which came before. We saw stages calling back to Earthbound, Majora's Mask, Zelda 2 and Yoshi's Island. Even the long-forgotten Game & Watch series with both a stage and Mr. Game & Watch himself as a playable fighter. Melee is a celebration of all things Nintendo. There's a wealth of music from past games included, alongside a huge number of trophies to collect. Each trophy even includes a lovingly written description highlighting that character or item's first appearance, giving us all a chance to brush up on our Nintendo knowledge. This was the first game that heavily played on our nostalgia for Nintendo to deepen the experience. But if Melee was the first, then it opened the floodgates for a huge number of games to follow suit. For those who pre-ordered The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker for GameCube, Nintendo included a bonus disc with a copy of Ocarina of Time for you to play, along with the never-before-released Master Quest adventure to satisfy both new and returning fans. The GameCube also saw a standalone Zelda Collector's Edition disc, which included the original two NES Zelda titles, alongside Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, if you were lucky enough to get your hands on a copy. It was a crazy time where it felt like loving nods to Nintendo's heritage were everywhere. The Game & Watch, Famicom disc and Rob's Head treasures in Pikmin 2, the wealth of Nintendo-inspired microgames in the WarioWare series, the inclusion of tracks from Super Mario Kart in Mario Kart Super Circuit. The pinnacle of Nintendo's nostalgic nods on the GameCube though, besides Melee, is surely Animal Crossing. This game includes a wide variety of Nintendo items for us to dress up our characters and adorn our houses with. Nintendo 64 and GameCube logos, a large R-Wing replica, the Master Sword. There's no shortage of ways to Nintendo up your home. Most remarkable though are the 19 fully playable NES games. Sure, you do have to find the relevant NES game items yourself, which is no easy feat, and yes, some were incredibly difficult to obtain, but none of that matters when you can have access to such an amazing chunk of Nintendo history right at your fingertips. It was clear during this generation that Nintendo really wanted to give us a whole host of ways to enjoy their past titles. To this end, they released an entire series of classic NES games for you to play, albeit at a high price, on your Game Boy Advance. They also pushed remakes of classic games like Metroid Zero Mission and Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, giving newcomers an easier gateway into these classic entries. Even the short-lived Game Boy Advance e-reader saw numerous card series for classic NES games to scan in and play. With the end of the GameCube era though, it looked like Nintendo was set to change the way they operated. Then CEO Satoru Iwata steered the company towards a new, blue ocean strategy, trying to draw in a more casual audience with an emphasis on brand new ways to play games on the DS and Wii. Despite this change in focus though, the DS continued to push forward with nostalgic pride. From launch we had Super Mario 64 DS, giving old and new fans alike a classic 3D Mario experience. Mario Kart DS built upon the Super Circuit model, with 16 returning tracks from previous Mario Kart iterations, in the process setting a new standard for the series. This game also included a novel mission mode, tasking players with coin collecting and power sliding trials, all culminating with bosses taken directly from Super Mario 64. The DS also saw a return of 2D Mario platforming with new Super Mario Bros., giving a whole new generation the chance to play Mario in his classic 2 dimensions. It was on the Wii though that Nintendo really struck gold in monetizing the nostalgia we have for their games with the Virtual Console. For the first time, a download service was available for a wealth of games from Nintendo's back catalogue. Clearly realising the potential of the Virtual Console from the start, Nintendo brought 12 NES games at launch and maintained a rapid rollout of retro games thereafter. Super Smash Bros. Brawl continued the precedent established in Melee, setting out to build an even more majestic celebration of Nintendo. Brawl included stages from Mario Sunshine, Kid Icarus, Donkey Kong, and even an eerie remake of the classic Super Mario Bros. World 1-1. It also pushed forward with the inclusion of a whole host of fighters from long dormant series, bringing in Pit from Kid Icarus and Rob the NES robot, alongside the returning Ice Climbers and Mr. Game & Watch. Of course, this was all wrapped up with yet another phenomenal soundtrack, more evocative trophies to collect and the series' first selection of masterpieces. Short-time demos of old Nintendo games showing the gaming roots of in-game fighters. Nintendo also began leaning more heavily into their heritage with the core Mario platformers, with many more callbacks to past games alongside the usual wealth of crazy new ideas in Super Mario Galaxy and Super Mario Galaxy 2, most prominently in the well-named Throwback Galaxy of the latter game. A remake of Womp's Fortress from Super Mario 64, complete with a Womp King boss fight atop the fortress. This marked a fantastic instance of Nintendo using our nostalgia for a new purpose, to surprise. Upon defeating the boss, rather than a star appearing for you to collect, as in Super Mario 64, instead a hole opens which upon entry surprises you with an even larger Womp boss. This use of our nostalgia against us to subvert our expectations and surprise us is something Nintendo have been doing more and more frequently in games, showing one of the benefits that a wealth of history can have when developing new experiences. To celebrate Mario's 25th anniversary in 2010, Nintendo took the opportunity to re-release the Super Nintendo classic Super Mario All-Stars on the Wii, albeit in an entirely unaltered state. I'd agree entirely with the general consensus at the time that this was quite a lazy port for Nintendo, but it's surprising how it almost brought them full circle, with it being one of their earliest forays into embracing their heritage back on the Super Nintendo. The Wii had its swan song in 2012 with Kirby's Dream Collection, a collection of 6 classic Kirby games from across the years. This game even included its own bespoke museum section dedicated to the history of the Kirby franchise. It's interesting that, beyond the trope of Kirby games marking the death of a system, Nintendo chose to send off the Wii in the same way it started back in 2006 through the Virtual Console, with a selection of games from their past. During the Wii U and 3DS era, the Virtual Console remained a firm fixture of Nintendo's business, following huge success on the Wii. Sadly, both systems saw its launch being delayed, with a 4-month wait on 3DS and 5 months on the Wii U, undoubtedly hurting both systems' launches. Releases were also decidedly slower than we saw during the Wii days, which left something of a bitter taste in fans' mouths. While slow to sell initially, the 3DS had nostalgic interest from early in its life with the release of Ocarina of Time 3D, complete with updated visuals and gameplay tweaks to tempt 3D Zelda fans. This was soon followed up in 2013 with A Link Between Worlds, a nostalgic love letter of a game. A Link Between Worlds perfectly balanced the classic Hyrule of A Link to the Past with novel gameplay elements, crafting a fan favourite entry in the franchise. Finally, in 2016, the 3DS saw a 3D remaster of Majora's Mask, marking the third nostalgic Zelda entry on the 3DS. The 3DS also saw further updated releases and remakes in the form of Star Fox 64 3D and Metroid Samus Returns, ensuring 3DS fans were well catered for their nostalgic needs. Animal Crossing New Leaf also lent heavily into callbacks to Nintendo's past, including a much wider range of Nintendo items for your house than ever before, and an array of detailed Nintendo costumes for mayors to flaunt about town, even if those playable NES games were a thing of the past. In 2012, the Wii U also got off to a great nostalgic start, even if not a great commercial one. The underrated launch title Nintendo Land had an interesting premise, setting itself up as a fun-filled Nintendo theme park. Many franchises received dedicated attractions in the form of varied minigames. We saw some classic Donkey Kong aesthetics in Donkey Kong's Crash Course, some overhead racing action in Captain Falcon's Twister Race, some touchscreen swiping action in Bloom Trip Breeze, and some bizarre Game & Watch rhythm action in Octopus Dance. The Wii U's 3D Mario games soon followed in the form of Super Mario 3D World. Originally receiving a lukewarm E3 reception in 2013, Super Mario 3D World continued the motif of 2D gameplay in a 3D world from Super Mario 3D Land. 3D World boasted the return of 4 distinct playable characters not seen since Super Mario Bros. 2. The game also included a variety of levels taking their inspiration from Nintendo's past, most prominently the one based on Super Mario Kart, complete with music and sound effects. 2013 also saw the launch of NES Remix on the Wii U eShop, followed quickly by NES Remix 2 in 2014. A compilation series allowing you to play short, fast challenges from a variety of different NES games, alongside a handful of uniquely remixed stages to test your skills. NES Remix is a perfect example of Nintendo providing an accessible platform for new players to enter into the world of NES gaming, while also framing these classics in a new and unique way for old fans. Then we come to Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS. Once again, Smash 4 continued the established precedent for archiving and celebrating Nintendo's past and future, though this time with a unique twist. Thanks to the 2 different versions of the game, the 3DS version was allowed space to focus more heavily upon Nintendo's handheld heritage, while the Wii U entry focused primarily upon home console gaming. With the 3DS entry, we saw the introduction of stages dedicated to the Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks, the DS service PictoChat and Nintendogs, while on the Wii U we had stages from Mario Galaxy, Wii Fit Studio and Pilot Wings. This focus on either home or handheld consoles really allowed for a celebration of the games from each distinct branch of Nintendo's business, without one overshadowing the other. Both games also saw the inclusion of yet more classic characters, including the previously missing in action Duck Hunt duo and Little Mac. Smash 4 also continued to build upon third-party heritage too, including the classic gaming icons Pac-Man and Mega Man, along with Ryu and Cloud through DLC content. Barring Cloud, these characters have built up a distinguished past on Nintendo systems all their own, so it makes perfect sense to include these characters to complement the wealth of Nintendo history on show. Of course, the now franchise staple momentous soundtrack was back in full force and once again larger than ever. It's easy to take for granted the sheer breadth of the soundtrack in these games, but it's truly awe-inspiring to sit back and listen to any Smash Bros soundtrack. Both versions of Smash 4 also saw the return of a huge array of trophies to collect and fawn over, with more fantastic descriptions to boot. It was of course these in-game trophies which inspired Amiibo, a whole new nostalgic avenue for Nintendo in 2014 alongside the launch of Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. It was a shrewd move for Nintendo to launch Amiibo alongside the game series which celebrates so strongly their heritage, and this move definitely paid off, with Amiibo seeing staggering success. Amiibo hype may have died down somewhat now, but you can't overstate the nostalgic sales force these little figures were, offering many of us a first chance to get our hands on official merchandise for those more obscure Nintendo franchises. And with HD remakes of both The Wind Waker and Twilight Princess on Wii U, alongside the more recent Fire Emblem Warriors and upcoming definitive edition of Hyrule Warriors on Switch, it seems like the legacy of Nintendo franchises and games to celebrate this are going nowhere. I also have to give a final nod to Super Mario Maker, a game which could have easily fallen into the trap of being nauseatingly nostalgic. But Nintendo were clever with this game, drawing the aesthetics from a variety of classic Mario games but shaping an entirely new experience for us to play. Super Mario Maker is undoubtedly a throwback to classic Mario, but through its unique new level building mechanics and the clever ways it lets you combine old items in innovative ways, the experience feels fresh and new. This game typifies nostalgia done right, harking back to the past but also looking to the future. Over the years there have been plenty of reasons to be annoyed at Nintendo, software droughts, half-baked games and questionable marketing, but the handling of their heritage is simply not one of them. Many companies have gone too far in their nostalgia pandering of late, with the market being flooded by remakes and remasters, so it shows restraint from Nintendo to avoid this level of saturation. The one constant from Nintendo across these turbulent years, besides the occasional masterpiece, has always been the fantastic heritage they've been creating, and more importantly, the clever ways they continue to use it. It will always be the feather in Nintendo's cap, which no other developers can match, so to treat it with such respect and restraint is admirable. However it is that Nintendo decide to utilise their back catalogue in the future, Whether it be through a virtual console type service, loving nods to games past, or something entirely new, one thing's for sure, we haven't seen the last of nostalgic Nintendo. Thank you so much for watching my first ever YouTube video. I'd be hugely grateful if you could give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel to see more in the future. Let me know in the comments what you liked, what you didn't like, and everything in between. I have a whole host of ideas for new content, and I'd love for you to join me on my YouTube journey.